Hey everyone, welcome to another exciting episode of First Impressions on the Scratch the Track podcast presented by the Dude and Grim Show and co-produced by Mr. IVEST. I am the Dude.
And I am Grim, and we are going to give our first impressions today about the new album from the Arcade Fire called simply We.
Well, right off the bat, Grim, what do we think? Or more importantly, you.
I don't know that I'm more important than anyone else, but I will say that it exceeded my expectations. Now, the flip side to that is that my expectations were very, very low. And that's mainly because I didn't care for what I heard of Everything Now. Or at least the title track. I mean, I know you've had good things to say about a lot of the other parts of the album, like Infinite Content, is one that comes to mind. But
Creature Comfort,
dude, Everything Now to me just sounded basically like ABBA, like an ABBA track that Arcade Fire sang over the top of. I didn't find it. I mean, to the T. So I didn't have high hopes for it. And then you had kind of told me after watching a video of the first song or hearing the first songs that came out that it sounded to you like it was almost like kind of going in the direction of like a musical. And so I was really dreading listening to it because I was like, oh, there's 40 minutes and 18 seconds I will never get back. But it exceeded my expectations. Dude, what do you think?
Okay. Well, actually, and even before we get into what I think this would be an opportune time for all of you out there who are Arcade Fire fans. We love plenty of their work, and we like to talk a bunch of other albums, but definitely, give us a like and subscribe. Let us know what you guys think below. Do you guys like this album? Do you hate it? Do you have mixed feelings? Has it grown on you with more listens? Are we missing something? What do you appreciate about it? Because overall, I don't think it's that good. There are parts of Everything Now that I really liked. There's parts of Everything Now that I didn't love. In this album, it just didn't go in the direction I kind of wanted it to. And I don't want this to be sort of one of those reviews that it's like, oh, they just don't sound like they used to. And I like the old stuff and everything, because look, bands have to evolve. Yep. They have to transition. They have to go into different directions. And as fans, we don't always like that. I mean, there's, some of my favorite bands, and I would say Arcade Fire at one time was my favorite band.
Oh, really?
At one time, I'm probably sure it was probably around the time The Suburbs came out and I saw them live at Lollapalooza, and it was just, man.
It all clicked.
It did.
Yeah. Okay. Now here's my question.
Go ahead.
Favorite band all time or like modern day?
Oh, at that time? I mean, shit, I don't know. Are you just asking me in general?
Yeah. I mean, because for me, when I say that, I always have like the little asterisk or caveat that's like of today.
Yeah, I would say it was more like of today. Okay. I wouldn't have just like thrown them ahead of the Beatles or Stones. Or Pink Floyd or
just wanted to make sure there wasn't a bigger problem we needed to address.
Exactly. So, I understand why this album maybe sounds like it does. It's because it was recorded and conceived during the pandemic, when it felt really just that was a dark, sad, dreary time, I think, in the world. And I think this album is a reflection of that. So I like the idea of it. I like the concept behind it. I guess I just don't love the execution of it. And that's kind of really where I go. It feels there's no edge really to this album. And we discussed before this, there's a lot of acoustic elements, which I typically love. A lot of piano. There's the acoustic guitar. Not a lot of electric guitar or, driving kind of sounds. It has some synth pop to it, but there's just nothing that I heard on it where I was like, oh my God, I really need to go back and revisit that.
That's a good way to put it.
That's what it was.
But I did like hearing the use of acoustic guitar, just because It's just something that I hadn't really heard from them in some time. And it has that always gives you sort of a back to basics sort of feeling, the acoustic guitar and the acoustic piano. So I liked that. I will say, and the one song that they did that I noticed use electric guitar pretty prevalent, I want to say, and correct me if I'm wrong, that it was in the End of the Empire grouping of songs.
Okay.
But they used the electric guitar really strong on just going with the melody and just hitting the notes, which I like, because normally you wouldn't think that that's a really inventive thing to do, but in the absence of things being electric guitar driven, it does bring something into it.
Okay.
But I know to me there was a lot of synth pop elements, which is it's fine, but it's almost like they sort of mix that with going back to basics in a way.
Yeah, and you could kind of see them going in sort of that direction, because I mean, certainly there's element like in Reflector. Elements of that, right? And then I think you would get a little bit more with Everything Now, but then with this, I feel like they, and maybe it's just the reflection of the times that they recorded this, and it kind of almost like sucked the life out of it. Like I just felt like this album was almost very flat and kind of dry. Like,
yeah, that's fair.
It's I don't know. It
didn't
grab. It just didn't grab me. I mean, there's some songs, and believe me, I love albums that here's an example. When Beck came out with Sea Change, that was very softer and slower, very different than anything Beck had ever done to that point. Again, also, didn't Nigel Godrich produce that one? And he produced this one as well.
I didn't know that. I didn't know that he did that.
Pretty sure he did.
It was interesting to see him on this one. I do have to say.
Yeah.
That was, I didn't expect that.
But I kind of like, comparing those two where it's like almost a complete sort of change in your sound, that worked for me. Something with this really just didn't resonate with me the way like an album like Sea Change did, where it was kind of a departure, I guess, from what they've done.
Now, one thing I do want to mention that I find kind of funny is that they were working on this during the pandemic, where in several instances during that period, there were stay-at-home orders, and you just didn't go and do a lot. Yeah. Go ahead and take a look at the list of additional musicians and recording staff on this, because there's a lot of people.
There's a lot.
Yeah, a ton.
I was very surprised at that too. And the interesting thing is there's so many extra musicians, but this is almost what I would say almost like the least full sounding album I've heard of theirs.
Well, but I think a lot of it is in the points where it builds up and gets really big. There's just so many layers there. And a lot of these people are just strings and additional strings and a bell, and they're actually
giving them individual credit over maybe a group.
Correct.
Sure.
Yeah. And there were some things that, that was interesting to me. I think it's also cool that Unconditional 2 Race and Religion has Peter Gabriel on it. That's pretty sweet.
Cool. That is cool. Give you credit for that. One thing, and you mentioned it earlier that I kind of said, there are parts of it that sound very theatrical and do sound like a musical to me. It almost sounded like I was like watching like a modern day, like Hamilton, where it's like, it's like this modern day play.
That's one I can just, to me, that would be a keep a track, because I hate that so much, but go on.
Okay. And what is the song? I think it's maybe, Living in the Age of. Living in the Age of, maybe part 2. I don't know. There's different parts and everything. Where is it? Yeah, or Age of Anxiety. And Win is like, says like rabbit hole, and Regine responds like, yeah. And they just have like this back and forth, and it just sounds like they're on a stage somewhere. And
I see what you mean.
that just doesn't, it doesn't do it for me. It does. It really doesn't.
I do have to say, and I've thought this, like, I think she is incredibly talented, like really talented. She sings very well. She has a very nice voice in terms of how it sounds and the timbre. But there are times when she does those super high vocals, and I find them very irritating.
Okay. All right.
But this is not to discredit anything that, I mean, obviously a very creative and talented person, but there are times when I hear those super high voice and I'm like, I don't like that right there.
I don't like that. Yeah.
But it's interesting to me too, because I always think of them as a Canadian band. But with that said, this album was, well, he was, yeah. But I would assume dual citizenship.
Probably at this point.
Yeah. Anyways, I just find it interesting that it was recorded in New Orleans, El Paso, Texas, and Mount Desert Island, Maine. It just interesting places to work, but I think it's cool. And I also, one thing I want to talk about are the themes. And I think a lot of these themes, some of these themes almost go back to Neon Bible. Honestly,
sure.
I mean,
he's
kind of talked about like this dystopian existence for a long time. I mean, there's things about it in Reflector, like flashbulb eyes. I mean, you can this theme of like technology is taking over. I don't like the course of modern life. I want to give everything away. I'm kind of like, man, you've been talking about it for a long time. It's time to do something.
I think this is him doing something.
Well, yeah, but
are messengers, man.
He does. Yeah, that's true. But he does say in one of the songs, he said, I want to give everything in this house away. I want to give everything in this town away or something like that.
Sure. Well, yeah.
Except my recording equipment, which I totally relate with.
But that's what I think I was kind of getting at earlier is I like a lot of the ideas behind it and the themes behind it. I just think I didn't really relate to the execution, but dude, we are living in an age of anxiety. We are all on high alert. It is high anxiety, even if you don't know it. You know, even talking about the end of the empire and talks about California and New York standing at the end of the American empire.
Yeah.
And in a lot of ways, you know, I'm sure we definitely are.
Oh, absolutely. And that's why it's hard for me to just like completely dump on it, although it may not be my favorite. I mean, it is put together well as an album.
Sure.
The themes and everything goes through it. But yeah, like you said, I mean, just for how it sounds, it's not my favorite, but you really can't knock it for what it conveys and how it conveys it. That's just not really my thing, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think that's what, you know, that's part of actually what I liked about Everything Now, the album, is I liked those ideas of, you know, the infinite content. And yeah, we do have everything at our fingertips now. And, you know, talking about the creature comforts and
dude, and even just the title track. I mean, that is modern life in a nutshell right there. Yeah. You find you think of like a movie or something, and you're like, what? Why can't I stream this for free right now?
Yeah, yeah.
And dude, my kids have no concept of TV the way we grew up with TV, where there are times when things come on and that's when you watch it. No, it's just like, I want this.
It's Thursday night at 7 or 8 or 9 and Seinfeld's coming on. And that's just when it starts.
Sorry, I hate to break it to you. Friends was always just the show that came before Seinfeld.
So you probably saw a lot of like endings of a lot of Friends episodes.
Yeah. Right? Yeah. I wasn't, you know, like, I did buy
Joey or Chandler just doing something stupid.
Yeah, just going. Yeah, I let's say I did at one point have all the box sets of the Seinfeld season DVDs. Right. I never got the ones for Friends.
No,
I never felt that urge. I was kind of like,
I hear they're really good.
That was the thing.
It's definitely a thing. All right.
Anyway,
well, I think we're running off the rails here, Graham. I think we should wrap this one up.
Yeah, but the age of anxiety, I love the whole bit of anxiety. That is, in a nutshell, to me, that's everything right now. That's everything now.
Yeah. Everything now. All right. Well, everybody, thank you so much for watching. Please, again, let us know down below what you guys think.
Yeah, I want to know what you have to say about it.
Yeah, like, here's the thing. Maybe we're just like missing it, because I know one thing we've done in the past, Graham, with some of our albums that, we'll read reviews for albums that came out years ago, and they'll be trashing on an album, and then we're like, oh, that's crazy. How could they have thought that at this time? Maybe that's us right now.
Yeah. And in retrospect, maybe we're gonna look back and say, you know what? I was wrong. Best work. Yeah.
I was wrong. So please let us know what you think below.
Like, subscribe, and comment below.
This is the Arcade Fire's We gotta go.
The Dude and Grim.
The Dude and Grim.
Scratch the Track is produced by the Dude and Grim. Additional music provided by More. That's .more and the Tims, TIMNZ. Copyright 2020. The Dude and Grim Show.